Hello, podcast listener. This is your host with the most, JJ from JJ Meets World. My goal is to meet every single person on the planet, and so far, so good. This episode of JJ Meets World features Tim Bauer. He's a pastor, he's a race director, and we even talk about his new YouTube channel. Plus, Tucker and I get to unpack a little bit about how physical we are when it comes to walking. Is it walking? Is it running? Is it jogging? Am I running from the police? We're going to find out. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
I've had a lot of different career opportunities since growing up. You know, when I was a kid, my dream was to be a scientist. Not a particular science or, no idea of what I want to do, but I know I wanted a lab coat. That's really
Looked official.
Yeah, that's really what I wanted, was a lab coat.
Important stuff's happening. A lab coat's on.
One of my favorite birthdays, my cousin Stacy was babysitting us at the time, and she must have been dating somebody who was working at NDSU in one of the research labs. But for my birthday, she brought me at night to one of the labs, and there's her friend who's there, and he's like, yeah, you can have these little tiny like plastic beakers and, just the random equipment they had around there. And I was like, oh my God, it was the greatest experience of my life. And I don't know why I never wanted to get into science after that, but it was probably the class I liked least when I was in high school. I never went into chemistry or physics. I did the bare minimum amount of science classes. And I'm intrigued by science and I believe in science, but it just never became something I followed through with. And every now and then I wonder what happened. What was it that caused me? Because Tucker, you and I grew up in a world where like they made science a lot of fun with shows like Bill Nye the Science Guy, Beakman's World. I think ultimately it's because I wanted to invent a time machine a la Doc Brown. But science was cool again when we were younger kids, and they started making kits where you could make giant foam out of science. And to me, I wonder if I could go back and pinpoint the moment where things changed and I no longer want, and it's not like I wanted to be a scientist and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I want to be a podcast host. There were a lot of other things in between there, but
it can be hard to focus as a teenager on any one particular thing. And I've noticed too that now in my mid-30s, I'm far more interested in learning about the things that they were trying to teach us in high school than I was back in high school. Because back in high school, I was like, I'm focused on my girlfriend in this movie I'm trying to make, and these hormones that I'm dealing with, and acne, right?
Do these jeans look cool?
Yeah. Oh, is my hair parted just correctly down the middle? That's cool, right, guys? But I also think part of it too is because everyone learns differently. The way science was taught to me, and math was my worst class. Math was the thing that I would walk into the room and I'd be immediately angry that I have to do this. I just hated it. I passed on a D- my senior year in math just because I was just
we got to get this Tucker kid through.
Got to get him out of here because we're tired of his attitude. But now I'm far more interested in it. And I think sometimes it can be difficult to cultivate interest in these things when you have to go to this poorly lit room every day for an hour and listen to someone drone on about the periodic table. When if they could have talked more about how gold and silver comes from the hearts of exploding stars and stuff like that, maybe they would have captured my interest more. But I don't know.
I'm always amazed when someone does have something I've never heard about and I can just lean in and get lost in a world that other people know that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And today our guest is Tim Bauer, and Tim is a pastor. He's a race director and
An event director, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, like we even get
We
into
get
like
into it.
should they be races or events? We'll see. But Extreme North Dakota Racing. So you can find them online, check them out. You're gonna hear the story of what this is. Now, this isn't just. It's not the idea of like, oh, you run a marathon. We're talking about 50, 100, 135-mile events that really pit you against yourself, whether or not you can complete this. And Tim has got some great insight. If you're somebody who's into this world, he is one of your own. If you're outside the world, like Tucker and I, you get to hear about these amazing. As we said goodbye to Tim today, he asked where the stairs were, and I thought, well, Tucker and I are going to be taking the elevator down. Maybe I could do something that's a little healthier, a little bit better for my body. But it is amazing, and I kind of challenge you to ask yourself this when you're listening to this podcast of, could you do it? Not could you do it today, but could you put enough faith in yourself to train to be able to do one of these events? If this is something that interests you, could you do it? I'd like to think that my body is something I can control for the most part, and if I wanted to, I could do this. Full disclosure, I don't want to do this. I feel like my biggest problem is mentally. I don't know if I could go that long just with myself.
Right.
Could you? I mean,
I can, but I have limits though too, right? Like it's the solitude is not the thing I think that would hurt the most as much as my lungs being on fire. That would be the thing that would dislike the most.
yeah. At one point Tim talks about the run a block, walk a block, run a block, walk a block. And the last time I was training for something, that's what I would do. And I would find myself like being so excited that like I've gotten to that walking block and be like, oh, this is heaven.
Yeah. See, I'm all about walk a block, then walk a block, then walk the next block. And hey, let's walk the next couple of blocks. I love me some walking. If someone was like, hey, I'm going to do this event today and you're basically hiking or whatever for a couple of hours, would you want to go? I'd be like, I'd be totally down with that. I love walking. You can have good conversation if someone's next to you, or you can just listen to podcasts. You're getting some exercise, but you're not hating your body. Running is a no-go for me. I've decided, just like going to IKEA, running is not something I'm ever going to willingly participate in ever again.
In 6th grade, I was in intramural basketball, and one of my fellow students told me, you run weird. And so now I am 36 years old at the time of this recording, and I still, when I have to run somewhere, I'm like, oh God, someone's going to think I run weird. And I don't know, like, I feel like I keep my arms up too high. Like, if you could only see the motion I'm making to Tucker right now. But to me, like, I also have super long legs, right? So like my run is very gazelle like because I can get so far as I'm going along. So maybe we'll put a video of me running up, or maybe 5 years from now I'll tell you like, hey, I did 50 miles on an Extreme North Dakota racing event. But I hope that you guys really enjoy this podcast. It was a great conversation with Tim Bauer, and we talk a little bit about his role as a pastor. We talk about his role as a race director, and now as a YouTube creator as well. So there's a lot to unpack in this episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World.
JJ Meets World.
Tim Bauer, welcome to the JJ Meets World studios. Good to have you.
Good to be here.
So first and foremost, you're Pastor Tim Bauer. Can you tell me a little bit about your career as do you call it a career, or is it a calling? What is it when you're a pastor?
Well, first of all, you can call me Tim.
Okay,
because that was the name I was given. Just a little antidote, and then I'll get. In my training there, I was finishing up my internship year of seminary, and this person told me, now, Pastor, don't let anybody ever call you by your first name. You are Pastor. And, being young and impressionable at that point, oh, okay. Anyway, since that time, I have come to say, no, I'm Tim. Nobody named me pastor. So anyway, there you go. You can call me Tim. And
That was originally what Paul Simon was going to call that song. Oh, you can call me Al, but he's like, you can call me Tim. It just doesn't roll off the tongue as easily.
I hear you. But anyway, I've been in this pastoral gig stuff for almost 40 years. Not quite. And some people would say it's a calling, but I believe it's one of the things I want to do in my life or have done in my life. I get a little, and this is Tim. I'm not speaking for clergy in general, but what I do in my life is no better, no worse, no more important than what you do in yours, JJ. It's what I feel I have the gifts and talents and fun to do. So anyway, yes, my journey's taken me from Lutheranism, various kind of shades of Lutheran, 50 shades of Lutheran, and currently in the United Church of Christ and serving up Hillsborough United Parish, which is both United Church of Christ and United Methodist congregation.
And that's where I had the pleasure of meeting you.
We met a little over a year ago at your mother-in-law's gluttonous picnic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I tell you, that picnic is one of the things they look forward to every single year. And I keep telling them, you go overboard every single year, Claudia, but she wouldn't have it any other way.
And that's all right, except this year.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
I told him, like, just make it a drive-through, just put together a package and everyone can come and grab it and go, right? Dishes are going to be a lot easier because you won't have as many.
See, and I thought about that as well. And they at least some traditions with sharing Holy Communion, we could have drive-up to-go bags.
Yeah, right? Listen, somebody out there is also thinking the same thing, so we just got to put like minds together, right?
And then we develop a set of 12 bobblehead disciples.
There you go.
And so then you can tell it's kind of, I don't know where you went to, if you did go to church and all that kind of stuff. But in Sunday school, every time you showed up, you got a gold star under the, and once you got 12 gold stars or enough of them, it depends on, you would get a little prize to help you keep coming back. 12 the disciple bobbleheads, and once you get the whole series. Yeah.
I can already imagine the merchandise display rack you've been developing of like the 12 disciple bobbleheads, the 50 Shades of Lutheranism book right next to it, and then the Gold Star sticker book of 12 stars gives you a North Star.
And you're going to be my merchandiser. So
done.
We're on it. We're on it.
I 10%. That's all I asked for.
Well, that seems appropriate, doesn't it?
So during the pandemic, you launched a video series that is probably one of the coolest things I've seen to come out of this. Had you been thinking about doing this video series before, and this was just the punch to get it going?
No, I was not thinking of doing that whatsoever. Part of this whole scenario, and that's why you've asked me to come here, is after meeting you and listening a bit to your podcast, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And I listened to your podcast on podcasting and all that. And I thought, that'd be kind of fun because I like to write, but it's like, who's got time to write? Anyway, when the world shut down in the middle of March and all of a sudden we're not meeting for worship, it was, okay, I got to do something. I mean, people expect something from me. I want to keep connected, but how do I do this? So I just decided I don't have all this fancy equipment like we have in this, up-to-date, modern, multi-million-dollar studio. And
there's duct tape. We just hide it really well, okay. So don't worry.
And so, I like the egg crates on the wall. But anyway, what ended up happening is I just thought, well, I've saw a few other pastors going into this, and it's like live streaming. Yeah, I don't know. And so I took my cell phone, learned how to use the video function, and started doing these little video snippets. And I keep doing them. And just so for all of your listeners who are anxiously awaiting the next video snippet, I'm now down to I do it every 2 weeks instead of every week because, yeah, life's changed again, but I still like doing it, and I still only use my cell phone.
Well, Tucker and I were like, we're going to do 2 episodes a week again. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, that's really hard.
That's a lot of work.
And so you gotta do, here's the deal. I would rather you make something of quality rather than you think like, I gotta get another video today and we'll just get something out there. So good for you to realize like what you want to do and the output you want to have. I am also going to say this. I've noticed too that the video gives you the ability to do something that you don't normally get to do when you're standing in front of a congregation, which is you can be outside, you can have the certain pieces of props. You can, if you're making an analogy of some sort, you can include it as a visual in there. And so your video series has kind of given you the opportunity to really personalize the messages.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy being outside, and over the years, part of what has frustrated me a bit is this idea that, well, you show up in a building at a certain day at a certain time, and we do, quote unquote, the religious thing, and then you send people on their way. Okay, I mean, that's nice. It's appropriate. It's what we've been doing for decades. It's what I grew up with. But if faith and our understanding of God and connectedness is meant to be a 24/7 kind of thing, why do we do it for an hour a week? So anyway, to be outside and to be using different props, being out in the country, plus I enjoy being out in diverse places, it's a bit of where in the world is Tim Bauer? And, and a travel log of different places in the area that I get to make those connections with.
Well, this is a good way to segue into a big passion of yours, which is these outdoor events that when you first told me, I thought I heard him wrong because there's no way he's talking about 100 miles in this event. But could you talk to me a little bit about North Dakota Extreme Racing?
No, but I can talk to you about Extreme Dakota
North
Racing.
Dakota, yes, yeah,
and racing.
Do your research, JJ.
Yeah. Racing in the Extreme North Dakotas.
And I should have brought a piece with me if you were going to do that. But our logo is the state of North Dakota, okay, with the initials END across it, and then at the offside on, I suppose, the west side of North Dakota, Racing. And I have a couple shirts and stuff, and we give them out as swag to people at the event. But I've had a number of people say, why do you want to end racing? It's like, wait a minute. From a marketing standpoint, I don't know if that's a good thing or not because people get the wrong impression. But it also opens the door for discussion. So maybe it is a good marketing ploy. I don't know.
I mean, if they talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And one of Tucker and I's friends always tells me when I say that commercial is really bad, he's like, yeah, but you're talking about it right now. So they've done their job.
Back in, I don't even remember how long ago, I was a chaplain at Sanford, but neuropsychiatric research down here wanted older adults to be a part of a weight loss study. And I've liked the outdoors and such. And I also said, I need to be more active. I need to lose some weight. Plus they were paying you a little bit for it. Plus you got free, kind of medical consultation. You had to be a part of a double-blind study because part of this whole thing too was with a weight loss drug that was in the final stages or the final whatever they call it before the FDA gives it a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. Well, part of this whole thing was you had to get in. The goal was counting steps and 10,000 steps a day and all that sort of stuff. Well, okay, I can do that. And I started in my mind was like, okay, I like walking, but if I got to get 10,000 of these suckers in, I don't have all this much time. If I'd run, I'd get it done quicker. Okay, so I would begin this run a block, walk a block, da 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 da. Anyway, then I got involved with a running club with a store that's still going, a shameless plug for Beyond Running, and they would have running groups, so I'd go out and do that. And anyway, got into this, and finally, my goal and part of this was by the time I was 55, and I'm going to be 66, so that tells you a bit of how long I've been. By the time I reach 55, I want to do a 50-mile running event. And I did complete that. I have not yet made the 100-mile. The best I've done is 80, which was in the winter, pulling a sled behind me in Wisconsin. But anyway, one of the
only 80
only
miles
80.
while
I
pulling a sled
haven't
in
made
the
the
winter.
100. I haven't made the 100 yet. I've done 100 on my bicycle, fat bike and such, but not on foot. But anyway, I got involved with Extreme North Dakota Racing as a participant. I was in their first, what is called End Sure, Extreme North Dakota, and then the other Sure, Sandhills Ultra Running Experience. It was held and still is held out in the Cheyenne National Grasslands. And it was in mid-March, the first year I participated in it. The starting temperature that year was -10. I did not finish 31 miles. I got the 25 miles, and a snowmobile took me out from there.
So, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So, number one, I know when they set up the Fargo Marathon, they have all of these markers and they show you a map of where you're going to go. When you're doing something that's 50, 80, 100 miles long, how do you know you're on the right path the whole time?
It varies by the event. One of the things I like to do as a race director is make sure people know where they're going, because it's my frustration in events, and I don't want to pass that on to somebody else. But yeah, other times there are usually some type of markers. Some of the early events that I did along trails, because most of this is trail running, and just as long as you mentioned Fargo Marathon, I've never run a marathon. I've done more than that, but never the. But anyway, a lot of them would use like little metal stakes, like those little utility thin metal wire things, but then strap, say, a blue ribbon and then a silver reflective ribbon and tie it on that. And those are always supposed to be on a certain side of the trail, and they should be seen every so many 100 yards. Well, if you go and you don't see any, you've missed a turn. Or where there were intersections of trails or where they say you should turn, they would tell you ahead of time, you're going to see 3 of these ribbon stakes in a row. And then when you get to the intersection, you look and see where you see the next 3 ribbon stakes. They'll be visible from the intersection. That's the direction you go. So it was thinking as well, a bit of wayfinding in it. But I've gotten lost before, and that's terribly frustrating.
Well, I can only imagine. I can imagine the thought of like, okay, should I go a little further just to see if I see one of these markers? Or am I going to go back to the last time I saw a marker and to try and right yourself? Because if you're halfway into, if you're 30 miles into this, you don't want to give up. You're still ready to go. You're still raring to be a part of this. And so maybe that's a human condition of not wanting to give up, but the frustration is because who are you frustrated with, right? You're frustrated with yourself. Maybe you're frustrated with the race director because they put these in the weeds, and you're like, how could you see this? How we've got a stop sign by our house where a tree has grown down and blocked the stop sign, and so people will get pulled over all the time for missing the stop sign, and they keep saying you can't see the stop sign. And you heard one cop say you can see the pole, and I remember thinking like, well, I mean, you can't argue with that logic, but there's a lot of other signs that can be at the top of a pole. So
Maybe it's a sign that says go real fast through this intersection.
Yeah, there's no speed up sign, is there? We haven't really made that one yet. So people get out. So how many are you doing this in partners and pairs? Is it a solitary event?
A lot of times anything of that distance, and again, it depends on the event, because some events, such as the Fargo Marathon, you get thousands of people to show up to them. Most of these ultra events that I've been a part of or direct, if like the Sandhills ultra running event, we cap off, we got 4 different distances and all that stuff. But say you got 100 people, but you've got 50 miles to cover. Some people start like a jackrabbit, and they're great and they're good and they can do that. Some of us stay at the back of the pack because psychologically it's better to be at the back and pass somebody than to be in the middle and get passed by a bunch of people. So anyway, but after 3-4 miles, it's pretty solitary because everybody spreads out. You may, part of it is you may see somebody half mile, 3/4 mile ahead of you, possibly. And that's kind of cool, but you better, at least for myself and other, you better learn how to do this on your own. As we were standing outside, I mentioned the person who went by who, she has completed the Arrowhead 135. It's 135 miles from International Falls, Minnesota to Tower, Minnesota in the end of January into February. She pulls a sled. She's a runner. You can bike it, ski it, or pull a sled. She has done, they have different levels, but she has done that unsupported, which means you can't stop at any checkpoints. You have to carry everything you need in your sled. Well, 135 miles, if she could see another human being, it would be a great time. You got to make certain checkpoints, and there you'll see people, but you can't at unsupported. You cannot take advantage of going indoors. You can't take advantage of any food or soup or hot beverages they have for other participants. Yeah, you better learn to like yourself because you're out there by yourself.
So something like that. I mean, how many days are we talking about? Is there a rest, or is this some kind of weird Terminator thing where you're not supposed to sleep?
Well, you have to bring different events depending on the season, obviously. But any winter event, most of them have where you have required gear you have to bring with you in case of emergencies, weather changes, temperature changes. For the most part, like the Arrowhead 135, they don't necessarily, you're not bringing a tent and pitching it out there and heating up hot toddies and having a good time. It's a matter of continuing on to finish. So you may bivvy, which is, if you've ever seen one, a bivvy or a bivvy sack is basically a one-person mummy tent that you crawl into and have a sleeping bag in it and all that sort of stuff. So you can get a little rest. Other people in winter events do what are called shiver bivvies, where they'll just sit down, say, next to a tree and sleep for 10 minutes. And what wakes them up is they get so darn cold that shivering wakes them up and they get going again. So but no, they're not, it's not meant to be a 3-day, outdoor event where you just get to, make s'mores and drink hot chocolate. It's keep going and get going. And there's checkpoints so they know hopefully where you are. But most of these ultra endurance events, pretty solitary events. So you better enjoy being in your head.
Sure. Well, even during, like, so take a January to February event, right? So you're outside, it's long enough that even if you brought a cell phone with you, the sheer temperature would probably make your cell phone battery drain a little bit. So at one point, you don't even have the convenience of maybe listening to JJ Meets World while you're running,
That would certainly stimulate you enough to keep you going.
right?
But in with that, indeed, people, and I have some too, those battery packs they make now are small enough, and you'll keep any electronic, or you should keep most of your electronic devices inside your somewhere where it's somewhat warm, but actually electronic devices work much better in cold conditions than really hot conditions. But people will keep them inside of pockets and plastic bags and those sorts of things. But oh yeah, they'll listen to stuff. And you almost have to have one with you in case of emergencies. The other thing you bring with you is some sort of tracking device. A lot of the winter events require that every so many minutes it sends a ping to a satellite and somebody else is watching on their computer so they can see where you're at along the route, especially as a race director. As a race director, I had a person in this Sandhills Ultra event out in the Cheyenne grasslands, got off course and got lost. They didn't know where they were. They were doing fine, but it was, this event now happens later March, so it's much warmer now when we do it, other than -10, it might be 40. I mean, which is a great time to run. But this person got off course, had a cell phone, called me and said, "Where am I?" Good question. So I go, I'm trying to keep it in my head. And I said, give me any kind of significant landmark around you. And this person goes, "It's flat." Well, okay, now I know where you are in North Dakota. Anyway, but those are, and what happened is I asked this person to quit moving. Give me you're at the intersection, and a lot of those roads out in that area, they were off the grasslands and on some road, but they aren't, there's not signposts on every road intersection out there. And I said, now just continue to give me some description and what are you seeing? And another person with me thought they knew where this person was just from some, I said, please do not move from that area too far, because if we don't know where you're at, so anyway, and then, but I'm getting cold. Well, once you stop moving, the furnace quits generating heat. And so it was one of those times as a race director where it's like, oh, I hope I get there in time, because the sun was setting, and we found the person and all was good. But back to in a winter event, any extreme temperatures make if something's going to go wrong in extreme temperatures, it will. And once it starts, there's no turning back. And I don't mean that in some sort of doom and gloom way, but because of the extreme temperatures or the extreme conditions, you don't have much time to turn it around. So you better know what you're doing relatively quickly, or you're going to be in big trouble. That's why some of these events, you have to have with you a minimum of a -20-degree rated sleeping bag. Because if you got to climb in and try to stay warm till somebody comes to get you, and your body's not generating heat anyway because you're at that kind of state, you need all the help you can get. So you're going to climb in whatever you've got to try to stay insulated. So,
well, it's clear to me that this isn't something that somebody hears about and goes, "Oh, I'm going to sign up for one tomorrow." You need a little bit of a background as far as Obviously some physical endurance, but also some mental endurance, I think,
Yeah.
goes into this.
And some of these you need like a lot of other things, college classes. Yeah, you got to take endurance 101 before you can move up to endurance 354. And a number of these events are that way, especially these longer distance ones that you have to have and show some sort of record, or that you've been able to do these things. Exactly, because as a race director too, you don't want people getting hurt. I want people to challenge themselves. I want people to explore, if you want to say, to go where their brain has never gone before, or maybe their body, but I want them to be safe. I can't guarantee it, but I certainly am not going to put something out there and let somebody do it because I have a responsibility to that person.
Let's talk about what you pack, because obviously you want to pack lightly. Nothing superfluous. You're not going to bring your Spice Girls poster.
Good word, JJ.
Yeah, right. I know. I've been wanting to work that into a podcast for a long time.
I've been working gobsmacked into things lately.
Have you?
A lot.
That's
Way
been
too
your
much.
term?
I've
Gobsmacked?
overused it a bit, but yeah.
Okay. So what are you putting into? Is it a backpack? It's not a shopping bag.
Right. Depending on the event, if it's say you have a August running event of 50 miles or 100K, 62 miles, whatever, some of them have aid stations every 10 miles, so to speak. Well, then you don't bring much with you. You travel light, a couple bottles of hydration, or if you have a particular food or calorie item that's good for you. But some of them are, okay, the next aid station is 30 miles. Well, then you carry what you like for calories with you, as well as how do I keep enough hydration for 30 miles. So you can buy hydration packs that you wear on your back, and you can stuff some calories in there. Depending on the nature of this, maybe there isn't an aid station, so then you bring some type of filtering device with you for water, to get
Like a life straw. I've seen
Yep,
those.
yep, those type of things. If you're in a winter event like the one I was mentioning with this person before, unsupported, when she needed water, she had to melt. You get your stove out and you melt snow. And one of the things she taught me about melting snow, which, how many years have we lived in winter and, all that kind of stuff, is you don't go get a pan full of snow and put heat under it and go, oh, here we go. It's going to take you forever. What you do is you got to keep some liquid. You can melt snow quicker if you've already got liquid in the pan than just trying to melt snow. Plus, if you look at snow, it depends on the snow conditions. There's a lot of air or fluff in it sometimes. So anyway, but one of the keys, if you're going to do this quickly and efficiently, number one, you should have some liquid. So you better save some of your liquid to begin the melting process. Makes it quicker. The other thing to find out in winter conditions is different fuels act different ways. There's these cute little, and I'm using a name brand, but different company, but jet boils are these little canisters of fuel that you screw on to the little burner thing up here. And it's kind of a gel. It's kind of like a sterno can.
Okay, sure.
Kind of thing. Those are great. You don't spill fuel. They're packable. They're light. They work. You hit the button, and hopefully the little electronic thing fires it up. Or you could use, the old-fashioned way, like a match. But that stuff doesn't work well in 10 below. So if you're so then you say, oh, okay, the old standard white gas, like if you had an old Coleman lantern with the little white gases, you go buy the can of it at the local store, and you bring a stove that uses white gas, because that will work well at minus 25. Well, but you don't know that. And all of a sudden, when you do learn it, hopefully you learn it before it's too late. But now you got a garage full of gear. But anyway, you've tried to find the lightest gear you can find. Clothing wise, come a long ways in insulated performance clothing, where before, if you watch those old movies of, Jack London and Call of the Wild out there in the middle of winter, and they're all, or what the heck was Jeremiah Johnson, I think, was one too.
Yeah.
He's out in the winter and he's got 8 bison skins around him, and he can barely move anymore, with the great insulations and the stuff they do with down and other wicking fabrics, and wool's kind of made a comeback, but thin wool, not these big, heavy, not wool army blanket stuff. You can travel pretty light.
I imagine that. So when I'm thinking about all the stuff I'd have to bring on a run like this, I envision an old prospector from back in the day, and so the pot and everything like that, and how just the sheer packing of whatever you're bringing with you is important. Like, you're making use of every inch of space, but you're also making sure that there's nothing that is going to rattle around, because if you're going to do 50 miles, you don't want something like constantly like hitting you on the side. It's got to be packed to perfection.
Yes.
So that you don't have something that just to me, I get frustrated at inanimate objects on a pretty regular basis, and there's nothing more frustrating than getting mad at something and going like, gosh, this table, and
because it's not going to listen to you and then correct its behavior.
Right? Yeah, the table doesn't care.
Yeah.
The table's like, listen, man, I'm still standing here.
Table's like, you do you, man. I'm going to do me.
So to me, that would be something that would give me a little bit of anxiety, is how well did I pack my pack? But there must be just a large group of people who are like-minded and do this. So you walk into Beyond Running and you tell them, I'm going to be doing an extreme North Dakota race. They're like, oh, great. Here's some things that we found that have worked for other people. And, there must be a knowledge base at this point that people are sharing amongst themselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And online especially, you can find. But what it boils down to for me is the phrase, it's an experiment of one. It's what works for me, because what works for me is not going to work for you, JJ, because I really, part of back to the packing, let's take winter events, but what, because you're not going to, well, it depends on the event, but let's just say you're out there 18 hours and you have to supply a fair amount of your calories. All of those gel packets, that you see all over the streets after a Fargo marathon, or what, all those goo gel packets and all that stuff. After about 2 of those, I want to puke, because it's worse than eating toothpaste after a while. I mean, they work, and some people love them. Some people can live on the darn things. And I've had other runners who are into, it's basically kind of that keto diet thing. One gentleman who's done really well on the 100-kilometer on the event in the Cheyenne grasslands, he eats maybe 500 calories. The rest is all liquids that he does, but he's trained his body to burn all that fat so he doesn't have to carry much with him. And I just look at him like, what in the world's going on? If I'm out there, one of the things, and you kind of treat yourself sometimes, but it's that mentalness of, okay, I've got 18 hours. Do I really need to have that with me? Yeah. The other part is, what can I bring that's a treat? Yeah. To kind of, as you get along, every now and then, okay. 2 things that I think are great. Spam singles.
Oh, sure.
In those little packets, because they're all self-contained, and it's got all the essentials for life in it. Fats, salts, and protein. And it's easy to slip that little sucker, especially in warm events. Can you imagine when that gelatinous stuff gets a little warm?
Yeah, sure.
Plus, if you've got a little rest time and it's hot, you can kind of, or if you're using in the winter, if you're using your stove a little bit, if you can turn it quick enough, heat it up, and that thing just slides right out.
Right.
Anyway,
August to find a nice hot rock.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It's good
yeah.
stuff. Spam singles will do it. Don't get the lights. You need the sodium and the fat.
Oh, without a doubt.
The other part of that, the other thing that I kind of treat myself with are Pop-Tarts. You can even eat a Pop-Tart when it's frozen. I mean, you don't, but you can break it and suck on it, and it's a sugary, nice treat for a while.
I've never understood people who toast Pop-Tarts. I've always just eaten Pop-Tarts right out of the bag.
Oh, listen, I think any way you consume a Pop-Tart is just fine. In fact, I kind of want to pop mine in the freezer now and find out what one of these frozen Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, I mean, it'll break,
Right?
and then you just suck on it a little bit.
I like to
It
freeze my
lasts-
Snickers sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
I like this
The
a
other
lot.
Pop-Tarts that I've tried that are, I'm getting the pretzel ones. Have you tried the ones?
There
now
are
that-
pretzel Pop-Tarts?
Yeah, they have a pretzel, the pastry or whatever. Part of it's kind of pretzel bread.
I'm
kind
down
of
with that, but
Ooh.
JJ has shown on Facebook this week that we need to rein in food science a little bit because there's a
Smuckers does Uncrustables.
I saw that.
Did you see that? Taco.
Yeah.
Ugh.
that's not right.
But that being said, we're going to review them on a future episode of JJ
I
Meets
think
World.
it's
I think
great-
you're going to review them. I'm going to record you reviewing them.
You think it's a
And
great
they,
idea?
They had chicken barbecue too,
They
if I
did,
read it
they
right.
did, yeah.
right? Or barbecue chicken or whatever they. I think that's a great idea. I also think if you want to do, I'll come back if you want to do a culinary testing of the 14 different versions of Spam. That would be just the nuances of Spam. So anyway,
Well, here's my thought. So, Smuckers makes Uncrustables. Anything jelly related, Smuckers is my company. But veering off into the world of taco, I'm like, stay in your lane, Smuckers. It's like if Spam was like, try this new carbonated beverage. And I'd say, listen, you do this meat in a can really, really well. I don't know if your skill set leads itself to a carbonated beverage.
That'd be like McDonald's starting a vitamin line.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Or spaghetti even.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, welcome. Would you like a Big Mac or would you like some spaghetti and meatballs? But that being said, I am not one of those people who I will look at that and be, ugh, but I'm going to try it anyways. I want to know.
that's half the fun of it.
Right. It really is. Okay. So
Anyway, you pack stuff that you want. I may have to try those Uncrustables. If I don't know what their shelf life is, but to have chicken barbecue or barbecued chicken little pastry like a Hot Pocket out in the middle of that,
Might be
thanks for
nice,
the
right?
idea.
Yeah.
Like a calzone.
But
you can have the rest of the box. We'll try two and you can
Yeah.
have the rest of them.
but it's an experiment for the most part. Running or long distance events, even it's an experiment of one. There's a great community that shares lots of good stuff, but you have to find out what works for you. So if you say, "Oh, I'm going to go out and try this," say I'm going to go out and do a half marathon or a 15-mile event out in the trails. Great, cool, but you know what? You better find out. And the only way you find out is to go do them, but find out what your gut feels like. You better find out what goes on in your head, because from personal experience, once you start the negative self-talk, why did I sign up for this, Tim, you idiot? You should have brought, X, Y, and Z. Why did you bring this? Where's the Smuckers, Uncrustables? And how come you ate that Pop-Tart? Now you want to throw up? And all of those things. Once I start that downhill slide of negative self-talk, many ways, there's no coming back. It's, I'm done with this crap. I find the nearest road. I'm calling home and somebody can come and get me. But as a fellow athlete told me, Tim, always call on your phone 1-800-GRANDMA, because she'll listen. Don't call me, because I'll just tell you, suck it up, cowboy, and get back out there. And that's part of it too. When you're tired and you're tired, you're cold, you're thirsty, you're hungry, you don't make rational decisions. It's easy to quit. Sit down, take a breather. I mean, don't sit there if it's minus 25 too long. Get some calories. When the sun comes up, it's a whole different thing. Traipsing through the winter trails, minus 25 degrees, and it's dark. Well, when isn't it dark in the winter? But, for the most part, dark, you're in a bad place. So just keep moving forward.
Okay, I want to know about the day before and the day after. So the day before you embark on one of these events, what does that look like?
For myself, it looks like a lot of, do I really want to do this? Why did you pay money to do this? Kind of thing. But then a lot of it, to me, is the camaraderie of seeing other people. I know it sounds stupid because then you get out there and you're kind of by yourself in some regards, but you see other like-minded, crazy people who are doing these things and you catch up on things. There's a lot of the day before packing and repacking. Checklists. You learn, or I have learned over time, either on my phone or on paper, to make a checklist. Do I have this, and this? What is it in? When I put it in my pack, which pocket is it in? Because on one of these winter events, when it is minus 20 and you're unzipping your pack to get in there if you can't find something, you talk about being frustrated at inanimate objects. You don't want to spend a lot of time with your gloves off digging through a pack, and then you go, oh, it's in my coat pocket. Yeah. So in some ways you end up learning kind of those routines of you always put the same thing in the same pocket. And that comes with time, and everybody's different that way. But the day before, a lot of different thoughts, sometimes trying to picture what's it going to look like 30 miles into this? How am I going to feel? And kind of visualization, kind of that pre-planning in your head that makes things, it kind of calms the nerves as well. But there's also a bit of nervousness.
Like, are you eating a lot of fiber? Are you?
No, I'm not.
I mean, like,
you don't want to hear, but I'm not eating fiber before an event. You want to, there again, you find out what works for you. There used to be, and I guess it's still out there, carbo loading the day before.
Right.
So you're eating, 10 pounds of spaghetti before. So you've got all this glycogen and all these carbs. I can go on forever. Yeah, it works for some people, may not work for other people. So there again, I do have a friend who, before an event, I don't understand it. He eats a bowl of crunchy Raisin Bran.
Really?
And it's like, oh, I the old adage about where do bears poop?
Yep.
Yeah. And if I'm eating fiber, and when you're on these multiple hour events, stuff happens. So yeah, you learn, or you figure out, I've got to take care of bodily functions.
Yeah.
So if I'm eating Raisin Bran before I go out there, no, then I'm packing. However, toilet paper does pack pretty tight if you do it right.
I think I've figured out my bodily functions after 35 years of like what is the optimal to keep things going correctly. I start every day with a banana and a handful of unsalted almonds.
There you go.
Really?
I highly suggest that to everyone out there. Ever since then, it's been perfect.
Really?
Plumbing's been perfect.
And if that works for you, to have some other runner or ultra event person say, no, you should go to dill pickles and jalapenos.
No way.
You go, thanks for the advice,
Right.
but I'm sticking to bananas and almonds.
Right. I take them with my morning pills because I've got my medicine to take in the morning, and then I just consider it part of my medicine. Handful of unsalted almonds and a banana.
So you would thrive at half of a continental breakfast. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't think unsalted almonds are pretty common.
No, but also those bananas are typically a little bit past. They're pretty spotty
Yeah.
at that
yeah.
point.
So
Typically.
are you eating? One of my favorite phrases is I've got a friend who's older, and he says, I don't buy green bananas anymore, just in case.
See,
and I was
do.
like, I love that idea. He's living for today.
I know I do buy green bananas. Because I prefer them a little starchier and a little less sweet. But also just the shelf life is longer. I've got some more time with those bananas before they go away.
Huh. Have you seen those pre-peeled bananas?
What?
It's the most worthless.
Yeah.
Like, talk about being a bad steward of the environment. They're pre-peeled, and then they're in one of those like plastic blast containers.
Do you want to eat a
Oh.
banana, but it's just too inconvenient?
to peel it? Like, literally, the earth has provided the best casing possible
Yeah.
for this fruit, and yet no, they're like, no, we'll peel it and then we'll put it in this
Other
and then
thing that
clip
you then have
container.
to open.
Yeah, and then
That's
throw
so-
away, and then you're making all that garbage.
Right.
Like,
You can at
why
least
make-
can you compost with banana peels?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
At least you can compost with. the
Sure, it's an
banana peel.
organic material, and actually it breaks down fairly quickly once you've opened it up and exposed the inside to air. So,
That is
Right? we're like,
to
and
have
just the whole notion of pre-peeling anything to me is I just don't get it when it comes down to it. I'm like, I love an orange. An orange comes with its own holder, you know, like it's perfect.
Yeah, I don't like pre-sliced apples. Like if like a
Yeah.
fast food restaurant's got like, no, give me the whole apple. That's what
Right.
I want.
Because usually they have to put like lemon juice or something
Yep,
on it so
to-
the apple doesn't brown.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some sort of citrus juice on it to acidify. Yeah, that's weird. See, which makes me think of, it's like baby carrots. I have looked and looked at, my wife's the gardener, and I say, where are the seeds for the baby carrots?
Mhm.
Don't they make little baby carrots? Well, come to find out, they're actually big carrots
Yeah.
that they shred.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they cut them all up and they make these cute little baby, tasteless baby carrots. And then it's like, well, what do you do with the rest of the carrot? Well, they shred it and put it into all kinds of other things, which brings me back to, what do they do with the banana peel? Do they shred it and put it in banana muffins?
I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of comedy school there that's using them, for
They're
The-
props.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like,
Who's
this
your
is how
banana
you
peel
slip.
guy? I got
Yeah.
a banana peel guy I got to hook you up with.
This clown college is like, we're spending too much on banana peels. I just read this. One of the weirdest things that has come out of this pandemic is the way businesses have had to pivot their source of income. And there was a circus that has lions and tigers. And of course, they're not doing live shows. And they're like, what are we going to do? And it was costing them so much to have the animal waste taken away. And then they found out that the company that was this like company that was taking away the waste was actually turning around and selling it to gardeners, because you can put this in a garden and then animals smell like this top of the food chain predator and won't go near it. The same way like people use deer urine in
Yep.
certain places and things like that, or fox urine. So this circus turned around and was like, well, we're going to just, cut out the middleman and like, we'll get them to them fresher. Like, we've got it going on. And so this circus started making buku bucks selling the waste of their predators.
No way.
Yeah. Isn't that just amazing?
We got to tell Sally this. Maybe the zoo needs
The
this
zoo?
as a form
Yeah.
of income, because I
I
know the
think
zoos
so.
are hurting right now too with all of this.
So it just kind of goes to show that something that you don't think of. And there's an old story about the Las Vegas buffets back in the day, that there was an old pig farmer who would take away what was left over from the buffets and he would feed it to his hogs. Like, so these hogs are eating ham steaks, which is pretty weird. It's a little cannibalistic.
Day old sushi.
Yeah, but a prime rib, just weird stuff like that. And then eventually these casinos are like, wait. This guy's making a ton of cash off of these big pigs. We're going to charge him to take our garbage. Be like, that makes sense. And then when they started using used restaurant oil to fuel cars,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it wasn't Applebee's saying, okay, would you please empty this thing for us? We'll pay you $100. It's like, you're going to give us $20 to take the old mozzarella stick oil.
Yeah, we have yet to figure out how we're going to monetize the waste products we create with this podcast, but we'll figure it out at some point.
Must
all
be-
the hot air that JJ and I expel when we're doing
I'll
this.
bet you it's going to be Bitcoin when it comes
Probably.
to
Yeah,
that
by the time
instead
we
of,
do it.
Ethereum,
yeah. But that, yeah, good idea. I
All
love
right.
the way we're going with this.
Oh yeah, you never know, right? That's the nice thing about JTB's world is you never know where the conversation's going to lead. I am curious though about the day after.
The day after, let's put it this way: for myself, when I get to the end of the event as a participant, it's like, it's over, thank goodness. And then your body, you get some of those endorphins, like, yeah, I made it, all this. And then after the endorphins kind of go away, it's like, I feel like crap.
Yeah,
because the
you've given
muscles,
everything.
Yep, and that's for myself post event, and it depends on timing and access. One of the things that is one of the great gifts is what's called vitamin I, ibuprofen.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because your muscle, once you quit moving and your muscles are used to moving all that time, it's like they want to lock up and say, sorry, sucker. We ain't moving for a while. Or the inflammation. I mean, I don't know all the physiology part of that, but you've pushed yourself to the limit. And so your body, like the day after, for the most part, is kind of you're in this kind of fog of your body's trying to catch up, and your brain is kind of shot in some ways, in that you've used a lot of mental energy as well, just getting through it.
Did you have any ritual of like, oh, I always watch something. I always take time to journal about it afterwards, or you put a star up there, and soon you're going to be able to get one of those Sunday school
Yep,
trinkets.
I really, in all of this, I'm not a ritual person in general, and even with the day after when I'm done or whatever. No, a lot of times it's like, depending on the time of day or the day after, it's like, I'm going to have a good cup of coffee and just kind of sit, and I may think about stuff and kind of reprocess what worked well and what didn't. But as far as writing stuff down and all of those sorts of things, no, and a lot of times when I've done this, I haven't given myself a day or two post to just say, I don't have to go to work. I don't, and people claim I don't work anyway. So that, I'm very flexible. Sunday mornings and an hour at that, and maybe 10 minutes of original material even at that time. But anyway, I often get back into the routine of life. So but part of it is I've had times after these events the next day, I have to go up or down the steps one step at a time, very slowly. I mean, and by one step at a time, we all take probably one step at a time. But I put one foot on this step, and instead of taking the next foot and going up to the next step, I put it on the same step. It's kind of like the shuffle up the steps or down the, because it hurts until your knees or other muscles and ligaments again begin to get back their elasticity, because they're like, you've beat us up, not doing that again. There are people who can get out the next day and run, but it's like, not this guy. I may bike a little or something, but yeah, it's a day mostly for me kind of lost in the fog.
Yeah. Twice in my life, I've almost died, to the point of where I think like I cheated death in this particular moment. And I think we've all had that weird thing that's happened to us. Maybe you've been in a car accident where you walked away with minor bumps and bruises that could have been a lot worse. But a friend of mine said, like, well, what'd you do the next day? And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you almost died on a Thursday. What did your Friday look like? And I said, I went back to work, and I probably, had lunch with Tucker. And he goes, you didn't want to just find a way to like reaffirm the fact that you're alive, and that, do something like a bucket list item and think, there's no time like today. And I said, I guess I didn't put that much stock in it because I always thought about, well, I'm going to face death at another point in my life, no matter what. I mean, that's the price you pay for living. And after the second time I almost died, I thought, well, I definitely need to think broader strokes here and do some stuff that I want to do. But that doesn't mean that I need to erase everything that had been my routine leading up to it. And so I imagine that if you get done with 80 miles, you at least can look back the next day and be like, I did, that celebration that I did that. I accomplished that. And you probably wish a couple more people would ask you what you did the day before. So you'd be like, well, actually, let me tell you. So, going forward, you said you're 66 now. You're about to turn 66.
I will be 66 soon. Yes. So my goal in life at 66 is to get my first Social Security check. Then I don't care what happens.
Have you started to go through that process? Because it is pretty bizarre. I mean, the government doesn't want to give you money. Like they'll say, like, "Well, you were born
They
too
were
late
just
in the month."
sending out checks.
Yeah,
Come on
I know. And begrudgingly, like some people even haven't received theirs yet if they were still using check. But I was just talking to a friend who just went on Social Security. And he said, I was born towards the end of the month, at the end of a quarter. And he goes, so you have to wait until the next quarter. And because of the month you did, he goes, so I figured I turn this age, I'm going to get a check the next day. And he goes, no, it was like 2 months later until he finally got his check. And he goes, and I had pre-spent that money. I had stuff I wanted to do with that Social Security check. So we'll have you back and talk about that process too.
I have been doing the reading. My birthday is at the end of the year. And so I'm going to begin the process online in September because they say, well, you should do it 4 months before. But in my reading, because of where I'm at in the month of if everything goes well, I should get my first check the last week of January. But I mean, I'm not quitting my day job either. I'll keep working and keep having fun and just let the government pay me.
Yeah, right. I mean, you put into it all these years. It's time to.
And you and Tucker are gonna keep putting into it, so I can
right.
have the life I want to
We'll
lead.
probably never get anything out of it. So
but
more than likely,
thank you in advance for what
welcome.
you're doing for me.
Yeah.
See, I think that they should just start playing the lottery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because isn't that the best thing if the government won the lottery? Because they'd not only keep the principal chunk, but they'd also keep the tax chunk as well.
Mhm.
So they actually get to be the only entity
It's
to
a
claim the
win-win.
entire lottery. If you are a race director, you're also involved in these. You're a pastor. You seem like the kind of guy who, like, retirement isn't really a word in your vocabulary because you always have something that you're doing. Can you imagine a world where you wake up and there's nothing on your palette on your schedule for the day?
No, and not to be flippant about that. That's part of, say, the video stuff. I enjoy doing that. When I initially started it, part of it was to help the congregation still stay connected and get a little kind of, I suppose, spiritual reflection or something of that nature. But it's like, this is kind of fun. And if I can help people, I can go out and do something. Part of it is I'm not selling. I don't want people to subscribe, if you want to say, to my YouTube channel. There you go, folks. YouTube channel, Tim Bauer.
Click the like button, smash that subscribe button.
It'll be right there in the notes for the podcast. But anyway, I don't want to monetize it as far as saying, oh yeah, I'm selling ads. And I'm not that important. I don't think they're that. However, and part of the reason behind it is if I can be of help to somebody, and what I've done previously, and this is kind of melded together, there were families who said, our teenage children, we'd like them to have some spiritual, religious faith education, but we're not connected to a congregation. They don't meet at times we want to meet, all these things. And I said, I'll come and meet with you. And COVID's changed some of that, so you do some via Zoom or what. But I've sat in an office with a family with a couple kids, and we did, if you want to say, religious education, faith development there. And the adults kind of directed the conversation. It wasn't, well, go to the pastor and he'll zip off your head and dump faith into you and zip you back up. And thank you, I've graduated, I'm going home. Well, with this back to the YouTube and some of that, it's like, well, if there's somebody out there in Paducah, Kentucky, who watches and says, I think that guy might be able to help answer some questions, or maybe I'll work. I mean, in this day and age now, with all the distance learning we can make this happen. And I don't need to retire. I'm in a job, so to speak, or a vocation that I can do in many different formats in many different ways. Same with kind of the race directing. It's kind of, I have a case of the Peter Pan syndrome. What do you want to do when you grow up? Grow up? What? I'm having too much fun now.
That is if more people could have that mentality, I think they would find more joy in their day-to-day. Somebody told me recently, like, well, you never seem to take anything seriously. And I'm like, you're wrong. I take a lot of things seriously. The problem that I think you see with what I'm doing is I also find the fun in what I'm taking seriously. Like, the word seriously doesn't mean doom and gloom.
Right.
It means that you are giving it 100% of yourself into the contemplation. And so to me, I find that the people who sit there and just relish arguments, which is one of the reasons the internet is a very difficult place for me to find a community. I like being with human beings. Even coming back into the studio, I like being able to look you in the eyes and just read your body language a little bit. And I'm like, well, is Tim uncomfortable talking about this? I want this to be a moment.
It was the Raisin Brand.
Was
JJ.
it the Raisin? I love that connection, and you just can't get it in online sense. Now, that being said, I do love finding out that there are people all across the country who have across the world that have the exact same affinity I do for the movie Captain Ron. Like, I can't believe there are other people out there who have seen it just as many times as I have. And I love having conversations with them about it. So it is a catch-22 for me to be on the internet. But your video series, I think, is great because you invite people to be part of a community. And that community is beyond what I take from the videos, is beyond even faith. It's being together. And gosh, don't we need that now more than we've ever needed it?
Yeah, indeed. Well, and that's part of as I process that, I don't journal it all the time, but when I look at kind of the ultra events, and people say, well, what event are you training for now, Tim? And my standard phrase is, I'm training for life. Because if we become event focused, once the event's done, it's like, oh, okay, that was, but for myself, all of this is helping me, if you want to say, in the journey of life. And you find like-minded people or people who've experienced their own journey. That's part of what's fun. You talk about post-event, to hear other people's story of, some of them may say, oh yeah, at mile 42, when that skunk, did you see that skunk? And, that's the fun stuff to listen to, because, and somebody else may say, skunk? I didn't see a skunk. Where, and da-da-da-da-da. And you're sharing, and they say, oh yeah, and yet they've made the journey. And even if they don't make it to the quote unquote established finish line, say they made 45 miles and things happened and they just said, you know what? I'm done. Come get me, or, whatever. that's still an accomplishment. What did you learn in that? It's not like, you're a loser. It's, what did you gain? What made you decide at that point to say, I've had enough? So anyway,
I love that.
I think there's a connection between, in my role as a pastor or as a person sharing faith, or like you said, the YouTubes, they're meant to connect parts of life. So it's not just this religious kind of thing, but it's like, how does this integrate into everything we do? And that's what makes it fun. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I'm thankful there's people out there who will still pay me to do it.
There you go.
Well, I'm serious, and I'm at a point in life. My 2 daughters are adults. We have no debts. You know what? Life's pretty darn good. I can do what I want, and Medicare is dirt cheap. So hey, I can keep doing this.
That is, what a great way to wrap up this conversation, just to say, like, yeah, I get to do what I love. I mean, people should be so lucky to be able to say that at some point in their life. I get to do what I love, and I get to experiment with this person, and you never know what's going to come next. Well, is the ultimate goal, are you ever going to try and get the 100? Is that what you'd like to do?
The 100's still in the back of my mind. I want to, for what, is it a bucket list thing? I don't know if I'm into bucket list, but yes, there's something about making that century on foot.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it on a bike and such, but I want to do it on foot. When is it going to happen? With COVID, who knows? Yeah, but I'd like to do it in a organized event.
Mm-hmm.
Could I go out and do 100 miles in the Cheyenne National Grasslands pulling a sled? Sure. Would anybody know it? Probably not. My wife, or you may know it because you're going to be there with Pop-Tarts and
Yep.
And
Here's your Uncrustable, Tim.
Here's your Uncrustable. It's frozen, but just suck on this taco Uncrustable.
Filled with taco meat.
But I'd rather do it in an event so I could look back on it and say, see, I did it.
Well, would you follow up with us and let us know when you get the 100?
Sure. There's an event. I hope it happens with COVID. I don't know. There again, physical distancing isn't an issue on some of these events because you don't see anybody. But if it happens in January, I'll let you know because I plan to sign up. That one, the long distance, it's either 80 or 160.
Oh.
So there you go. I'll keep you informed.
Well, and again, find these videos on YouTube. Tim Bauer, Bauer.
Yep. Just like my Uncle Eddie.
Yep. Oh, Eddie Bauer. I like that. That's not true, is it? You're not really related to Eddie Bauer, are you?
Not the one who has stores and.
I related to the better Eddie Bauer. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Fantastic. So find Tim online. There's even one with you and I on there.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can all about cups.
So then you can see JJ.
That's right. Yeah. Eventually, we're gonna get cool like you and have like a full-fledged like video YouTube channel.
Ooh.
But I gotta decide how thick my mutton chops are gonna be before then. So that's
you go.
2 years in the process. We'll get there eventually. Tim, thank you so much for the time today.
You're welcome, JJ. Thank you.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. Just thinking about an 80-mile run makes I have goosebumps on my hands. But now if you said it's an 80-mile go-kart race, I'm like, I've seen heavyweights enough. I'm prepared.